Namaskara. Welcome to Correct Kannada. This is a table, this is a list of set of tables containing all the types of Kannada tenses or Kannada verbs. Okay. So if you understand this table, you should be able to conjugate any Kannada verb. That's basically the expectation. So it is also expected that you would have gone through the tenses tutorial before coming to this table. So this video will be put after the tenses table, so tenses tutorial, so that you could finish the part 1, part 2 of the tenses tutorial and then come for this table. Only then you'll be able to understand it and appreciate it. Okay, so table list of all types of verbs. So these are the types of verbs that are in Kannada. Beyond this, there are no other types. Okay, within this type, there will be all the verbs will fit into one of these types. Okay, that's basically what I'm trying to say. Okay, the first one is actually in English, to do verb. In English, I have given so that people understand how the table looks for all the tenses, right? That's the idea. Next is Madu. Madu is a oo ending regular verb. So Madu type of verbs are the most common verbs in Kannada, where they are oo ending and they are regular verbs. I'll talk about irregular slightly later. Then bare. This is a ending. Bare means to write. It's a non-oo ending, non-oo ending, but it's a, right? And this is also a regular verb. Third is the kudi. Kudi is to drink. Again, it's a non-oo ending and it's e ending. So most of the Kannada verbs fall into these three types: Madu, Bare, Kudi types. Okay, which means Madu has got its own rule of conjugation. Bare and Kudi fall into the same category of conjugation, which is a non-U ending. But I've given separately because one is a ending, one is a E ending. Some people may have difficulty if they find another E ending and how to handle it, because A and E are supposed to be handled exactly the same way. Okay, then we have this special verb called Iru. Right, Iru is to be. So Iru has got two conjugations, that's why it's very special. So Iru has been handled separately. And Iru is also needed for all complex tenses, right? Because the second part of all complex tenses like present continuous, past continuous, future continuous, or present perfect, past perfect, future perfect, all of them will have the Iru verb in its simple present. I mean, it's in its simple tense. So that's why Iru verb is super important. Then you have Hogu. Again, it's very common, and Hogu is an U ending irregular verb. It's irregular in the past, and it's type 1 irregular. What it means is the U will become the. Hogu will become Hoda. So this Hoda is basically what it is, right? It is your relative participle. Okay, so it's the past relative participle. So what is given here is all the past relative participle of the verb, and this is your hint. Hogu will become hoda, so it'll be hodanu. So in other words, the past tense is what is irregular, and that's what is being given here, right? So hogu should not be conjugated like madu. That's basically the point here, and that's why it's irregular. It's irregular only in the past tense, simple past. Yeah, everywhere else it's regular. Okay, so hogu has to be conjugated as hode. So it will be hodenu, nanu hodenu, I went, right? So that's why it's irregular. So very important. Similarly, agu is to become, right? It has the same conjugation as hogu. People may have difficulty because it's a two-letter word. That's why I've given agu also. But agu and hogu are the only two verbs that are very, very special in Kannada. Why it is special is because Kannada is like what I mentioned many times. There are two types of participles. One is the verbal participle, and another one is the relative participle. Okay. Now, the verbal participle and relative participle, the difference is only one u, right? For example, if you take Madu, right? Madu, the verbal participle is Madi. Okay, the relative participle is Madida. Okay, so okay, that was probably a bad example because with U ending, the relative participle is Madida, verbal participle is Madi. But if you take Bare, right? Bare will be a good example. Bare, the verbal participle will be Baredu, and the relative participle is Bareda. Okay, here this is a good example. So Baredu and Bareda. Baredu is verbal participle. Bareda is relative participle. So from verbal participle to relative participle, it is just the removal of U. Okay, but just for Hogu and Agu, that's not the case, right? Hogu, the verbal participle is Hogi, relative participle is Hoda. Similarly, Agu, the verbal participle is Agi, relative participle is Ada. So the verbal participle and relative participle is what is making every verb to go and fit in various grammatical concepts. Okay, like tenses. Everywhere, it's the verbal participle and relative participle which will be the center part of every grammatical concept. We will talk about modes, we will talk about modals in various videos. You may not be able to understand what I'm saying right now, but the verbal part, so that in short, it is like there are two participles called verbal participle and relative participle. This verbal participle and relative participle is the center portion of any grammatical concept in Kannada related to verbs. Okay, any grammatical concept related to verbs will not cannot be addressed without knowing verbal participle and relative participle. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, in that aspect, verbal participle and relative participle are linked to each other by just the letter u. Verbal participle will have the u, relative participle will not have the u. For example, so bare, for example, bare will be baredu and bareda. Baredu is a verbal participle, bareda is a relative participle. Okay, so all of them are like that. Of course, Madu will be Madida and Madi. Okay, Madu will is different between verbal and relative participle. But besides Madu, everything Madu, Hogu and Agu, every other verb, the verbal participle is with the U and relative participle will be without U. Okay, you will get to understand this as you proceed in learning Kannada. Just keep in mind that there are two participles. Okay, Hogu, Agu, done. Baru. Baru is to come again. It's a irregular verb in ending in U, and it goes from U to inda. So Baru will become Banda. Okay, in your past tense. Baru will become Banda. Then Kodu to give. Kodu will become Kotta. It's a irregular again. Kodu will become Kotta. So a similar verb to Baru will be Taru. A similar verb to Kodu will be Idu. Idu is to keep. Taru is to bring. So there are verbs that are similar to Baru which will fit into this type. So once you know Baru, you will be able to conjugate Taru. Once you know Kodu, you will be able to conjugate Idu. Okay, so the U becomes itta. So Kodu will become kottenu. Past tense will become kottenu. Thinnu, Thinda. So I'm calling it as type 2A because Thinnu is very similar to Baru. Just that it's got that baby letter and everything. People may find it difficult to conjugate, but it's actually conjugated exactly like Baru. So one more verb that is similar to Thinnu is Annu. Annu means to say. Okay, so Annu will become Anda, like that. Kollu, very important verb. Kollu is to buy on its own. But kollu is also a helping verb which can be added to other verbs, right? For example, you can add it to any verb, right? For example, tinni kollu. You can say tinni kollu means you eat yourself. Kollu is like a reflexive verb. It's a verb added to other verbs to make the verb reflexive, meaning you're doing it on yourself, right? So ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳು, ಮಾಡು plus kollu, ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳು means you do it yourself. Then you will say ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. So kollu conjugation, past tense will be kondu, konda, right? That's why it has to be understood. And the verbs that will have this illu will always fall into this category. Then kali is to learn. It will be kalita, right? Even though it's similar to e, kudi, it's not conjugated like kudi. It's conjugated. The e will become ta, so it will become kalitenu, nanu kalitenu, like that past tense. Then gellu is to win, become gedda, nanu geddenu, avanu gedda, like that. Alu, to cry, past tense will be atta, alu atta, itta. The u will become itta. So these are the only types. So there are 7 types. Okay, 2 has got 2a. So to total you can say 8 types of irregular verbs. Every other, there are total of 212 irregular verbs. They'll fall into these 8 categories. So once you learn these 8 categories, you're done. Okay, you will not be lost. Okay, now let's look at the tables one by one. First is the one in English, so that you are familiar with it and also how the table is formed. So the table has got 10 rows, okay, and 9 columns. The 9 columns are pretty simple. You will see that you have your simple present. I mean, of course, the verb root is put in this topmost corner. Then you have your simple present, present continuous, present perfect, simple past, past continuous, past perfect, simple future, future continuous, future perfect. These are your tense forms, right? 9 tense forms. Here in this side, what you have is your the pronouns, meaning I, we, you all, he, she, they, it, those, and then the negation, the nisheda, right? So do in English, it will be like do, and not do. Continuous will be am doing. Perfect tense will be have done. Simple past will be did. And the negation will be did not do. So whenever you have confusion, come back to this. And then all of us are cursed to be learnt in English and English educated. We were not educated in our mother tongue, unfortunately. So we have to fall back on English. Okay. Okay, so then the first one is Madu. Okay, so Madu will basically be the first verb that everybody has to learn Madu. Okay, so that's important. So then so you have this one we learned already in our tenses tutorial. So you can just go through one by one. Maduttene, maduttevi. So all present tense will be here. Madalla, right? So Nanu maduttene. ನಾನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ, meaning I am doing. So you can go in this way or you can go in this way and learn. But read it one by one. Okay. Pause the video and read it one by one. So I'll just do it for Madu. ನಾನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೇನೆ, right? ನಾವು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೇವೆ. ನೀನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೀಯೆ. ನೀವು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೀರಿ. ಅವನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತಾನೆ. ಅವಳು ಮಾಡುತ್ತಾಳೆ. ಅವರು ಮಾಡುತ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದು ಮಾಡುತ್ತದೆ. ಅವು ಮಾಡುತ್ತವೆ. Nisheda will be madalla, nanu madalla. Why the pronouns are not given here is it's common for all the pronouns. You say nanu madalla, neevu madalla, neenu madalla, everything is madalla for all of this. That's why it's common. There is no okay. So continuous madutta iddeni. Perfect present perfectly madiddeni. By the way, I've given it as broken form, meaning madi plus iddene. You have to read it as madiddene because e plus e will be e. So madiddene. So even in other tables, the reason I've given it in broken form is for you to understand how it is formed. Right? Madi plus iddene is madiddene. If I give it together, it will look very confusing. Okay. So simple past, madidano. Now, one thing that we all have to understand is simple past is a very, very unique thing in Kannada that it uses the past relative participle to join the verbs. Just remember that. Just remember the simple past is very unique. All other, for example, present continuous uses present verbal participle. Present perfect uses again verbal past verbal participle. Simple is the only one which uses relative participle, right? So it's madida plus enu, madidenu. Simple past rightfully should be handled very separately, but maybe I'll just make a video just for simple past to show why it is different, why it is so special, right? Because as you know, all tenses are made up of verb plus a participle plus the png suffix. The participle in simple past uses relative participle, not verbal participle. That's the beauty of simple past. Whereas present tense uses a verbal participle, which is a present verbal participle here, madutta. This also madutte, this te is all this itta is present verbal participle. Present continuous is present verbal. Present perfect is madi is a verbal participle. Similarly, all the past perfect, future, all these are using verbal participle. The only tense that uses relative participle is the simple past. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. And then of course, I've highlighted those unique looking tenses, which is a maditu, right? Adu maditu. The the will come. It will not be. See, all of these are the based, right? Madidaru, madidalu. The only thing that is the based is your adu. Adu maditu. Very important. Adu will always, the neuter gender singular will always be very unique. Okay, just remember that. Okay, let's move on. Okay, the next one is bare. Bare is to write, and it's a ending, non-u ending verb, and it's regular. Okay, so you have to add barayuttene. The u has to be added. Barayuttene here. Baredenu for simple past. Okay, so again you have to go through either the column wise, meaning complete simple present, or you can go you can read one single row, right, where you will get for nanu all the tenses. So you have to read them one by one and get familiar. That's the whole idea. Again, the neuter genders, third person singular neuter is always very unique. You will have the barayitu, not Bare, it will not be a the based. Okay, bare. That's why I've given it in highlighted box. Whenever you see highlighted yellow box, it means it's unique. Okay, you will see in the irregular verbs, the complete simple past will be unique. Okay. This is kudi. Kudi is to drink. It has the same conjugation as bare, just that it's e ending. I've given as an example because most of the verbs in Kannada will be u ending, a ending, or e ending. So most of the rules are for u ending and non-u ending. A and e ending have the same rule, meaning kudi means kudiyu, bare means bareyu, right? Kudidenu, right? For a simple past, you have to put the. Now, these are things that we have already learned in our tenses tutorial, and my expectation is you attend the tenses tutorial and then come after this table. You see the previous slide, right? It's iddene, iddevi, right? But if you see in this slide, you have the second form of iru conjugation, which is iruttene, irutteve, iruttiye, like that. Okay, so this one has only the present tense form, but it means the same as the previous, the iddene. As we proceed further into Kannada, you will see the usage of the second form of iru, right? It is actually used for future tense and all certain types of future tense. Immediately, we may not need it. Okay, moving on. Okay, so this is hogu, to go. This is the first irregular verb. Starting from this, every verb is irregular. Irregular means irregular in the past. Irregular means irregular in the past. Okay, past tense. This is a hogu verb. Okay, hogu is to go. So why it's irregular? It's ho de no. Ho da is to be used. Okay, ho de no, ho de hu, ho de, ho diri, ho danu, ho dalu, ho daru, ho yitu. Again, see you see the neuter. First, third person singular neuter is always unique. Hoitu, hodavu, hogalella. Okay, so this is your hogu. And perfect tense will use hogiddene, hogiddenu, right? Hogi, hogiruvenu, like that. Okay, that's your perfect tense. Moving on. Agu is conjugated exactly like Hogu, just that it's a two-letter word. I'm given it again here, and Agu means to become, and it's also very commonly used in Kannada, and therefore I've given the conjugation. Adenu, Adevu, Ade, Adiri, Adanu, Adalu, Adaru, Aitu, right? Kelsa Aitu, Adavu, Agalella, right? It's your Ada. It's irregular in the past, regular everywhere else. And the perfect tense will use agi, agiddene, agiddenu, agiruvenu, like that. So next is baru. Baru is to come. Again, it's a irregular verb in past. So it will be bandenu, bandevu, bande, bandiri, bandanu, bandalu, bandaru, bantu. Again, the third person neuter is always unique. Bantu. Bas bantu, male bantu. It came, right? So you have to use bantu. Halu, ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಲು ಬಂತು. Milk came in the morning, right? ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ is morning. ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಲು means milk. ಹಾಲು ಬಂತು. It came. So bantu is very commonly used. Okay. Kodu is also a irregular verb. We will have irregular in the past. ಕೊಟ್ಟೆನು, ಕೊಟ್ಟೆವು, ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ, ಕೊಟ್, ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ, ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರಿ, ಕೊಟ್ಟನು, ಕೊಟ್ಟಳು, ಕೊಟ್ಟರು, ಕೊಟ್ಟಿತು. Again, see ಕೊಟ್ಟಿತು, right? It's not ಕೊಟ್ಟೆತು, it's ಕೊಟ್ಟಿತು, right? ಕೊಟ್ಟವು, ಕೊಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. ತಿನ್ನು, so ತಿಂದೆನು, ತಿಂದೆವು, ತಿಂದೆ, ತಿಂದಿರಿ, ತಿಂದನು, ತಿಂದಳು, ತಿಂದರು, ತಿಂದೆರು, ತಿಂದರು. So ತಿಂದಳು, ತಿಂದರು, ತಿಂದಿತು, right? Then ತಿಂದವು, ತಿನ್ನಲಿಲ್ಲ. Right, this is kollu. Again, kollu is also a irregular verb. Kondenu, kondevu, konde, kondiri, kondanu, kondalu, kondaru, konditu, kondavu, kullaliಲ್ಲ. Kali, to teach, again it's irregular, even though it's E ending, it's irregular. It's kalitenu, kalitevu, kalite, kalitiri, kalitanu, kalitalu, kalitaru, kalitu, kalitavu, kalitu, right? And then the verbal part, I mean the perfect tense will be kalitu, kalitideni. So kalitu plus deni, kalitideni. Gellu, right? Again, irregular in the past to win. So it's geddenu, geddevu, gedde, geddiri, geddanu, geddalu, geddaru, gedditu, geddavu, gellalella. And the perfect tense will use geddiddeni, geddu plus iddeni, geddiddeni. Next will be alu. Alu is to cry, right? So alu will be atte. So alu will be attenu. Okay? Alu attenu, attevu, atte, attiri, attanu, attalu, attaru, attitu, right? Attavu, alalella. And the verbal participle will be attiddene. Attu plus iddene, attiddene. Is to cry. Okay, so that was the last slide. Dhanyavada. If you have any questions, please write to correctkannada@gmail.com. Okay, so the intention here was to give you an idea of how all the tenses are conjugated. Once you get these tables right, you will be able to figure out all the tenses, all the verbs that you come across, and you'll know which type it need to fit in. Now, certain verbs you see it, you won't know whether it's irregular or not. By usage, we will get to know it's irregular or not. Okay, so that's exactly how we do it. Any language we'll do it that way, right? So in English, how did we figure out that but is but and put is put, right? So it's the same thing by usage. Okay, thank you. Dhanyavadagalu.